Hello, good day viewers. In this tutorial, I'm going to explain linear equation in real life situation. A linear equation is a polynomial equation of degree 1. So let me write a linear equation for you in slope-intercept form. We have it to be y equal to mx plus c. We say it is of degree 1 because the highest degree of x in this type of equation is 1. So naturally, x has a power of 1 here. And once it is 1, we don't have to write it. So y here is what? The dependent variable. I will explain that. While x here is the independent variable. So let me start explaining this too before we come back to m and c. This is dependent variable because it depends on the value of x. For instance, if you have an equation y equal to 2x, to determine the value of y, you may insert some values which we call the input. So for instance, if x is equal to 3, you have 2 multiplied by 3, replacing x with 3, and y is now equal to 6. So you can see now, when x is 3, y is 6. So y depends on x. This is why we call it dependent variable, while this is the independent variable. All right. Then we have m here. We call this slope. Talking about graph, that is the rate of change. This is slope, right? Rate of change. I will explain this. Then we call this the constant. And we can also call it y-intercept, talking about graphs. It is called y-intercept because this value here determines the value of y when the independent variable is equal to 0. And on the graph, it is exactly where the curve passes through y-axis. So you can see that we have the constant. It is constant because sometimes you may not see that. You may have an equation of the form y equal to just mx, for which c is 0 in this case. So if you see this, you should know that this is also a linear equation, likewise this. If the constant is missing, we have something like this. This is why I want to explain this in real life situation. So having done this, let us start explaining. Let's assume we have Mr. Campbell here and Mr. Isomnofu right here. All right. We made our mind that we're going to be saving 3,000 Naira every month in our bank accounts. But it happens that before we started depositing that weekly amount, I have 150 Naira in my account. So we are not going to count that 150 Naira. So I have 150 Naira in the account already before we started depositing. And unluckily, Mr. Isomnofu has nothing in the account. Maybe it is just any account. All right. So you can see that in the first week, if we deposit 3,000 Naira each, my total amount will be what? 3,150 Naira, while Mr. Isomnofu will have what? Only 3,000 Naira. Why do I have much? Because I initially have what? 150 Naira in the account before we made our mind to be saving 3,000 weekly. So this is the first week. In the second week, I will deposit another 3,000. Right? He will do the same. Another week, that is the third week. So let me stop at third week. You can see that in the end, my total amount will be what? I have deposited how many 3,000s? 1, 2, 3. I have deposited 3 of this 3,000 naira. Though I know it should be 27,000, right? But there's a reason for writing this 3 here. 3,000. But remember that this will still be in my account. This is why I told you you can have an equation of the form mx plus c or just mx. So in this situation, this constant stands for this initial amount. Mr. Epsilon will have the same 3 of this 3,000 naira. So the question is, how much will I save in n number of weeks? Let's assume we have week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to a certain number of weeks, which undisclosed number of weeks. For an undisclosed number of weeks, because this 3 here stands for 3 weeks, we're going to have n instead of 3. So where should I write it? Should I write it here? Okay, let me write it. Okay, let me write it here. My total amount after n weeks will be this 3,000 naira times n, then plus my initial amount. For Mr. Isomnofu, it will be 3,000 naira times n. Okay, can you relate? A here stands for the dependent variable. 3,000 here stands for the slope, that is the rate of change. And x here stands for n. So to determine the total amount, because I told you that this is independent variable, this is dependent, so to find the total amount, it depends on the number of weeks. This is why this depends on that. For instance, if this is 3, we have 3 times 3,000, which is 27,000. So amount will be 27,000 after 3 weeks. While this one will be 27,150 naira after 3 weeks. That is the total amount in that saving account. So you can see that all these equations can be interpreted in real life, including quadratic, whatever, exponential equation, logarithmic equations. Remember that these exponential equations, we can relate them, especially when we have a disaster, a pandemic, while disease keeps on spreading rapidly. You can use exponential equation to relate it. So this is a linear equation in real life. We have just illustrated that this is the dependent variable, this is this rate of change, this is the independent, this is the constant. As simple as that. Bye-bye.